Hey everybody. So in this video I want to talk about the term cross-dressing and gender fluidity as a term, and I want to talk about why I prefer gender fluidity. I just want to preface my words by referring to a philosopher named Richard Rorty, who talked about vocabulary and how vocabulary and the words that we use can affect our consciousness, can shift consciousness. So I also want to preface what I'm about to say by saying that I believe that it's up to each person to choose the word that best suits them as to what a certain kind of gender expression is for them. So in other words, if you are comfortable and happy with using cross-dressing to describe what you do, then please feel free. I'm not trying to change your mind, but I think it's helpful to have different perspectives on that word, as well as on gender fluidity. Richard Rorty also thought that the more stories we tell related to words, the more ways we use words, the more we can see how they're useful for us in particular ways. So we start to use one word rather than another. So I did use the word cross-dress to describe what I used to do. And I never identified as a cross-dresser because that involved a fixed identity that I wasn't comfortable with. So it was true that I cross-dressed, but my issue with the word is that it tends to be only used for men who put on women's clothes, and not for women who put on men's clothes. So women freely wear pants and shirts, but as soon as a man puts on a dress, he's cross-dressing. Whereas when women wear traditionally men's clothes, they're not cross-dressing. So that's my main issue with that word, is that there's a double standard, it seems to me. And that doesn't make sense to me, to have that, to apply that word in some situations but not in others. Feel free to respond to this point in comments if you want. What I also like about gender fluid is that whereas cross-dress has this idea of a cross, right, and moving from one point to another, whereas gender fluid for me is not about particular points. It's about moving fluidly along a spectrum. So I really like the way, I was watching a video by Natalie Wynn, ContraPoints is the name of her channel. She's a trans woman and really smart and creative. Her last name is W-Y-N-N, and the channel is called ContraPoints. And she talked about how we label things women's clothes and how problematic that is, as if, you know, if I go to a store and identify as a man and I buy clothes, they're my clothes, right? For all intents and purposes, I'm the owner of those clothes. So what are we doing by marking them off as exclusive to women? We don't have a similar marker for men, men's clothes. Women are free to wear a whole range from dresses to pants, and I believe that men should be allowed to do the same, regardless of gender, regardless of one's gender identity. I feel that people should be free to express their gender. For example, let's say they're gender questioning and they don't know what their gender identity is, but they're experimenting with wearing dresses or growing their hair long, or wearing earrings. These are traditionally women's forms of presentation. But by opening up the possibilities for gender expression and calling this gender fluidity, there's much more room to maneuver and to express and to feel a sense of freedom about who you are. So that's why I prefer gender fluidity to cross-dressing. I really like the notion of a rainbow or a spectrum, and feeling free to identify and express along that spectrum. Yeah, so I think I'll stop it at that. Thanks for watching.